Stop everything you are doing right now before you pack a single bag, book a single seat, or assume that the way you have been flying for the past decade still applies today. Because here at Airport Wisdom, we have been tracking 8 major airline and airport rule changes that are rolling out across the industry right now in 2026. And the thousands of senior travelers in our community who have already encountered these changes without warning have paid for that surprise in missed flights, unexpected bag fees, denied boarding situations, and wheelchair assistance failures that left genuinely vulnerable passengers stranded in terminals for hours. And we refuse to let that happen to one more person in this community without giving them the complete picture of what is changing, why it is changing, and exactly what to do about every single one of these shifts so that your next journey is protected from the first moment you arrive at the airport to the moment you reach your destination. So let us get into all 8 of these changes right now, starting with the one that is perhaps the most infuriating in terms of what it reveals about how the airline industry thinks about its relationship with you as a paying passenger. The 8th change is something the Department of Transportation is calling a civility campaign, and we want to be honest with you about what this actually is, because framing matters enormously here. The government has officially launched an initiative reminding adult passengers to say please and thank you to airline staff, to help fellow travelers with overhead bins, and to conduct themselves with basic courtesy in the airport and cabin environment. And the stated justification is that there have been nearly 14,000 unruly passenger incidents since 2021, with 1 in 5 flight attendants reporting physical altercations in the past year alone. And while none of that is acceptable, and while our Airport Wisdom community would never condone disrespectful behavior toward cabin crew who are doing a genuinely difficult job under increasingly stressful conditions, the thing that deserves your attention here is what this campaign is conspicuously not addressing: the underlying conditions that have pushed the flying experience to its current breaking point, which include seats that have been shrinking steadily for years, hidden fees that appear at checkout after passengers have already committed emotionally and logistically to a booking, customer service systems that are deliberately difficult to navigate, and a general commercial posture that treats passengers as revenue units rather than human beings entitled to dignity and transparency. The Airport Wisdom perspective is this: be genuinely kind to your flight attendants because they are not the architects of the system that frustrates you, and they absorb the consequences of passenger anger they did not cause. But simultaneously know your passenger rights completely before you fly, document poor service when it occurs, and file a formal Department of Transportation complaint within 24 hours of any genuinely unacceptable treatment, because airlines respond to official regulatory complaints with a speed and seriousness that no social media post will ever generate. The 7th change is one that is catching senior travelers completely off guard at gates across the country because it involves dress code enforcement that is simultaneously more aggressive than it has ever been and more inconsistently applied than any reasonable passenger could anticipate or prepare for. And the inconsistency is not accidental. It is a function of policies that are written broadly enough to give individual gate agents enormous discretionary authority, which creates an environment where one traveler is denied boarding for a crop top while another boards in clothing that would fail any objective modesty standard without a word being said. What we know concretely is this: several major carriers have updated their dress code policies in 2026, with Spirit explicitly banning barefoot passengers, inadequately clothed travelers, and see-through garments. Delta has prohibited AI-equipped smart glasses, including popular consumer models from certain technology brands, and most airlines are now strictly enforcing a 2-item personal item limit that includes your backpack or crossbody bag counted alongside your carry-on suitcase, meaning that the 3-item configuration many travelers have been casually using for years is now actively getting passengers stopped at the gate. The strategy our Airport Wisdom community has refined for navigating this environment is straightforward. Dress in a business casual or smart casual style for every flight because it passes any subjective standard any gate agent might apply. Leave technology eyewear in your checked bag until the regulatory picture clarifies. Adhere strictly to the 2-item carry-on policy. And if you are ever stopped and told your clothing or items violate a policy that you cannot find in any written documentation, use this specific phrase: "Can you show me where that requirement appears in your official published policy?" Because many of the most aggressive enforcement actions at gates in 2026 are based on individual discretion rather than codified rules, and that question forces the interaction onto factual ground. The 6th change is the one that affects our Airport Wisdom community most directly and most painfully, and we want to address it with the seriousness it deserves. Wheelchair assistance, a service that millions of senior travelers depend on for safe, manageable, dignified passage through airports that were not designed with their physical realities in mind, has become significantly less reliable in 2026 for two compounding reasons that are both real and both infuriating in different ways. The first is a documented 30% increase at major airports in able-bodied passengers falsely requesting wheelchair assistance to bypass security and boarding queues, which depletes the staffing and equipment resources that exist for the passengers who genuinely need them, creating wait times that have stretched to 45 minutes, an hour, and beyond at busy hub airports. Wait times that, for a senior traveler with a tight connection, are not merely inconvenient, but are directly responsible for missed flights that the airline then declines to take responsibility for because the missed connection appears on paper to be the passenger's fault. The second reason is even more outrageous. The Department of Transportation has paused enforcement of newly implemented regulations that were specifically designed to protect disabled travelers, including requirements that airlines return personal wheelchairs without damage and provide loaner equipment when passenger chairs are damaged during transit. Regulations that addressed a documented, ongoing problem of airlines mishandling mobility equipment that passengers depend on not just for travel, but for daily life. The protective strategy our community has developed in response to this deteriorating situation is a multi-layer approach. Call the airline directly 48 hours before your flight. Confirm that wheelchair assistance is formally noted on your reservation. Record the name of the agent you speak with and the confirmation number they provide. Arrive at the airport a minimum of 3 hours early for any connecting flight. And if your requested assistance has not materialized within 15 minutes of your arrival at the designated assistance point, go directly and immediately to a gate agent rather than waiting, because the squeaky wheel in this environment genuinely does get the grease, and passive waiting when the system is overwhelmed simply means you wait longer. The fifth change has been given an industry nickname that is both memorable and revealing: aisle lice, referring to the increasingly common behavior of passengers standing up the moment a plane touches down, crowding the aisle before the seatbelt sign has extinguished, and creating a chaotic pushing environment that delays deplaning for everyone and creates genuine fall and injury risk, particularly for senior travelers who need stable footing and adequate space to manage the physical process of gathering belongings and moving through the cabin. What is new in 2026 is that enforcement has sharpened significantly. France has implemented fines of up to the equivalent of $23,000 for unruly passenger behavior that includes premature standing, and American Airlines has installed automated boarding pass scanning systems that emit a loud rejection signal when passengers attempt to board before their assigned group is called, creating public embarrassment designed to deter line jumping. Our airport wisdom community's approach to this environment is to treat the seatbelt sign as the absolute authority it legally is, remain seated until it extinguishes, and for any senior traveler who has a tight connection that makes early deplaning genuinely necessary, speak with a flight attendant before the aircraft begins its descent. Explain your connection situation clearly and calmly, because crew members have the authority to position you for early deplaning, and they use that authority regularly for passengers with legitimate time constraints who communicate respectfully before the situation becomes urgent. The fourth change is the one that will have the longest-term financial impact on any senior traveler who has built their travel strategy around airline loyalty, and it represents a fundamental restructuring of the value proposition that frequent flyer programs have offered for decades. Southwest Airlines, which built its entire brand identity around the bags fly free policy that distinguished it from every other major domestic carrier, officially ended that policy on January 27th of 2026. Your first checked bag now costs $35 and your second costs $45, which for a senior traveler who takes 2 or 3 trips per year represents a meaningful annual increase in travel costs that needs to be factored into every booking decision going forward. Simultaneously, American Airlines made a change that strikes at the fundamental logic of loyalty programs. Basic economy tickets purchased on American no longer earn any AAdvantage miles or count toward loyalty status at all, meaning you can fly on their aircraft and pay your fare and receive 0 credit toward the benefits you have been accumulating, and the industry direction this signals, toward a tiered system where only passengers paying premium fares receive the program benefits that used to be accessible at every fare level, is one our community needs to understand clearly and factor into their airline selection decisions. The strategic response: calculate total trip cost including bag fees rather than comparing base fares, consider whether the loyalty program of your preferred airline is genuinely rewarding your patronage or systematically extracting value from it, and use airline co-branded credit cards strategically because many of them preserve benefits including automatic bag fee waivers and status protections that are no longer accessible through the ticket purchase alone. The third change is the single piece of genuinely good news in today's entire video, and we want to give it its full due because in an environment of steadily increasing fees and declining service standards, a meaningful improvement deserves to be acknowledged and used. Free or very low-cost Wi-Fi is finally becoming standard across major U.S. carriers in 2026 in a way that creates real value for senior travelers who want to stay connected with family, stream entertainment during long flights, or simply have the peace of mind of reliable communication throughout their journey. American Airlines is rolling out complimentary Wi-Fi for loyalty members on nearly every flight by spring 2026. United is providing free Starlink-powered connectivity for Mileage Plus members across more than half their regional fleet. Delta offers free Wi-Fi for SkyMiles members on most domestic and international routes, and Southwest provides free connectivity to all Rapid Rewards members. The consistent thread across all of these programs being that the free access is tied to loyalty program membership, which means the single most important action any senior traveler who has not already done so can take right now is spending 5 minutes registering for the free loyalty programs of every airline they might fly, because the membership costs nothing and the Wi-Fi savings on a single long-haul international flight can exceed $25. The second change is a painful reality for travelers who have organized their airport experience around lounge access as a guaranteed refuge from terminal chaos. Priority Pass and credit card lounge access have become significantly less reliable in 2026, as the explosive growth of credit card products that bundle lounge access as a standard benefit has created a situation where the passenger volume-seeking lounge entry now regularly exceeds the physical capacity of the lounges themselves, resulting in denied entry, waiting lists stretching 45 minutes or longer, and the deeply frustrating experience of holding a card that theoretically grants access to a quiet, comfortable space and being turned away at the door. Delta Sky Clubs have been among the most affected, implementing caps on the number of annual visits available to certain membership tiers and requiring significantly higher card spending thresholds to unlock unlimited access. The strategy our airport wisdom community has developed for navigating this new reality: arrive at the lounge as early as possible in your airport time because capacity constraints are most acute during peak departure windows. Have a specific backup plan identified in advance: a quiet gate area, a terminal restaurant, a charging station location, so that a denied lounge entry does not leave you scrambling. Ask the front desk agent specifically whether overflow space, secondary lounge locations, or quiet rooms are available before accepting that the lounge is simply full, and honestly reassess whether the annual fee of a lounge access credit card remains justified if the core benefit it is supposed to provide is no longer reliably deliverable. The first change is the one that is causing the most acute and immediate harm to travelers right now in 2026, and it is one that senior travelers planning international trips absolutely must address before their next departure. Travel authorization requirements have expanded, tightened, and in some cases been implemented with very little public awareness, and airlines are enforcing them at the departure gate with zero flexibility because the regulatory and financial consequence of allowing a passenger to board without proper documentation and subsequently be denied entry at the destination falls entirely on the carrier, which means gate agents are checking authorization documents with the same rigor they apply to passports. The United Kingdom's electronic travel authorization is already in full effect, required for travelers who previously entered the UK without any advance application, and it must be obtained online before travel with airlines verifying its existence before boarding. Europe's ETS system, while delayed in its full implementation until later in 2026, is moving toward launch and will require an online application and a fee of approximately $8 before entry into participating European countries, a requirement that will affect an enormous number of senior travelers who have visited Europe multiple times without ever needing to apply for anything beyond a visa-free entry stamp. The consequences of arriving at the departure gate without required authorization are severe and immediate. A family that appeared at a major U.S. airport with valid passports for a transatlantic flight but without the required UK ETA was denied boarding on the spot. losing over $3,000 in non-refundable flights and hotel reservations in a single moment. The protective strategy is a 60-day rule. Begin researching the entry requirements of your destination country, every transit country you pass through, and any stopover locations at least 60 days before departure. Apply for electronic travel authorizations as soon as they become available for your travel dates. Print physical copies of every confirmation and keep them with your passport, rather than relying solely on digital versions. Arrive at the airport a minimum of 3 hours early for any international departure to allow time for documentation, verification without pressure, and check the official embassy website of your destination country directly, rather than relying on airline websites, which sometimes carry outdated requirement information. The phrase that protects you at every documentation checkpoint is calm, confident, and complete. I have all required travel authorizations. Would you like to see my confirmation? There they are. All 8 of the rule changes that are reshaping the flying experience in 2026, and that our airport wisdom community now knows how to navigate with confidence, preparation, and the specific strategies that protect your money, your health, your time, and your dignity at every stage of the journey. Tell us in the comments which of these changes surprised you most, or share an experience you have already had with any of these new policies, because your first-hand knowledge is exactly what another member of our community needs to hear before their next trip. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because Airport Wisdom publishes new insider travel guidance designed specifically for senior passengers every single week. And we will see you in the next video, because the best flight of your life is the next one, and now you know exactly what to expect when you get there.